At my own baby shower, surrounded by laughter, pastel balloons, and people I loved, I felt invisible. My mother-in-law, Delilah, stood up, smiling like a queen in front of her court. She reached into a large, glossy gift bag and started handing out presents. One for her sister, one for her cousin, one for my sister-in-law. Every person she handed a gift to looked surprised but grateful, murmuring thank you as they opened small boxes filled with candles, bracelets, monogrammed towels. I sat there smiling, waiting, thinking mine must be last. Maybe she had saved something personal for me. After all, I was the one carrying her first grandchild. But when she reached the bottom of the bag and looked up, her eyes met mine. And then she turned her back. People fell silent. I laughed nervously. "Delilah?" I said. She didn't smile this time. Instead, she turned around, looked directly at me, and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I didn't bring you anything. I'm not celebrating a mistake." For a second, I thought I had misheard her. But then the silence around me turned heavy. Everyone froze. Some looked away. A few glanced at Tyler, my husband, but he just stared at the floor. He said nothing, not a single word. My face went hot. My hands shook in my lap. I was surrounded by friends, family, people who were supposed to support me, and I felt completely alone. Until Rick, my stepfather, stood up, calmly, quietly, but with purpose. He walked toward me without saying a word at first. The room was still. Then he pulled a tiny velvet box from his jacket and said, "This was your mother's. She'd want the baby to have it." That was when the silence broke, and that was when everything changed. My name is Amira. I'm 28 years old, and I'm 8 months pregnant with my first child. I wish I could say this journey has been all joy and glowing smiles. But the truth is, it's been a roller coaster of fear, excitement, and more loneliness than I ever expected. I lost my mom, Leona, when I was 16, breast cancer. It happened fast, and even now I remember how quiet the house became after she was gone, like the walls themselves were grieving. But I wasn't alone. Rick, my stepfather, had been married to my mom for 5 years before she passed. He never once treated me like I wasn't his. He made my school lunches, showed up at every parent-teacher conference, and sat through endless dance recitals, cheering the loudest every single time. He never tried to replace my mom, but he stood exactly where she would have wanted someone to stand. When I met Tyler in college, it felt like a new chapter. He was smart, gentle, a little awkward in the best way. We were both working our way through student debt and late-night shifts at the campus bookstore. He was the first person I ever told about my mom without crying. He just listened and held my hand like that story mattered. I fell in love with that calm presence. He didn't rush me. He never pressured me. I thought I had found someone who could give me the emotional safety I had always needed. We got married 3 years ago. Nothing extravagant. Just a simple ceremony in my aunt's backyard. Fairy lights, soft music, close friends. Rick walked me down the aisle. Tyler cried when he read his vows. It felt right. It felt solid. Then there was Delilah, Tyler's mother. From the beginning, she didn't seem thrilled about me. At first, I thought it was just the usual protective mother-in-law thing. She always had this way of saying kind words with a cold edge, like complimenting my dress while criticizing my posture. She smiled at our wedding, but it didn't reach her eyes. She called me dear in public and her when she talked to Tyler alone. When we found out I was pregnant, everything shifted. I was terrified at first. It wasn't planned, but when I saw the test, my first instinct wasn't panic. It was wonder. I imagined what my mom would have said. I imagined her crying and kissing my forehead and knitting tiny socks like she used to do for my dolls. Tyler was surprised, but he smiled. He hugged me, kissed my stomach, and told me we'd figure it out together. Delilah didn't take it the same way. When Tyler told her over dinner, she barely blinked. She put her fork down, folded her hands, and said, "That's unfortunate timing." I remember Tyler trying to smooth it over, saying we were excited, that we were ready. She just shook her head and said, "Well, you've made your bed." After that, her visits got colder. She questioned every decision we made. "Are you sure you want to deliver at that hospital? Shouldn't you be working right now instead of buying nursery furniture? You don't think it's irresponsible to bring a child into this world before you're fully stable?" I tried to stay polite. I kept telling myself she'd come around once the baby arrived. People soften when they see new life. Maybe she'd change when she held her grandchild. I wanted to believe that. Rick, on the other hand, was thrilled from day one. He kept sending me name suggestions and baby advice he clearly Googled, but tried to pass off as wisdom. He drove me to doctor's appointments when Tyler had work. He put together the crib himself. Every time I talked to him, I felt like I could breathe again. So when my baby shower came around, I was determined to enjoy it. It was held at my best friend's house in her backyard under a white canopy strung with yellow and green paper lanterns. We had cupcakes, little games, silly onesies hung on a clothesline. Everyone showed up, my aunts, cousins, a few co-workers, and of course, Rick and Delilah. Tyler hovered near the grill, nervous about burning the burgers, trying to be the helpful husband. I appreciated that. I had spent weeks planning it. I wanted it to be something joyful, something my future self could look back on and remember, not the stress or the comments or the tension, but love. For a while, it seemed like that's exactly how it would go. Then Delilah stood up, and everything began to unravel. The sun was warm that afternoon, filtered through white fabric stretched across the backyard. Laughter rose in bursts, the kind that comes from inside jokes and shared memories. There was lemonade in mason jars, sugar cookies shaped like baby bottles, and a Polaroid camera station where guests pinned up snapshots of themselves next to handwritten wishes for the baby. It was the kind of moment I had longed for. Normal, happy, surrounded by people who cared. Delilah arrived late. That didn't surprise me. She walked in wearing a white linen dress, big sunglasses, and heels that clicked against the patio stone like a warning. She barely looked at me. She kissed Tyler on the cheek, gave a stiff hug to Rick, and sat in a corner of the yard next to her sister, barely acknowledging the decorations or the people who had come. It was clear she hadn't brought a gift bag, but I tried not to notice. I kept moving, smiling, checking on the food and playing hostess. People brought diapers, soft blankets, onesies with puns on them, and baby books signed with messages like, "You've got this, Mama." My best friend Serena made a speech about how I was going to be an amazing mom. Even my aunt, who rarely cried, got misty when she hugged me and said how proud my mom would have been. But under all that joy, I could feel it. The weight of Delilah's silence, the pointed glances, the sense that something was coming, but I didn't know what. After the cake was cut, I sat down on the love seat set up beneath a Welcome Baby Leona banner. Tyler stood behind me, resting his hands on my shoulders. I felt his thumbs press gently into my skin, a quiet reassurance. Then Delilah stood up. "I'd like to say something," she said, holding her wine glass like it was part of a toast. Conversations faded. Everyone turned to her. Her voice carried smoothly across the yard. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate this occasion." She paused for a second, scanning the crowd. "I brought a few things," she said, reaching down and lifting a designer tote bag from beneath her chair. "Just some little tokens for the women in the family." She walked slowly, deliberately, first to her sister, handing her a silk scarf with a smile, then to her niece, who received a small gold bracelet. Her other daughter-in-law got a candle wrapped in tissue paper and ribbon. Each time, the recipient looked surprised, grateful, but confused. I waited. She hadn't looked at me once. When she finished handing out the last gift, she returned to the center of the yard. Her eyes finally locked onto mine. There was no warmth in them, no love, just the cold satisfaction of someone who wanted control and knew they had an audience. "I didn't bring anything for Amira," she said. Her voice was clear, calm, because I don't believe in rewarding mistakes. The air left the yard like a balloon popping. Silence fell so fast it felt like gravity had shifted. My stomach twisted. I froze. Every pair of eyes either darted away or flicked nervously between me and Tyler. I stared at her, waiting for someone, anyone, to say something. I turned my head slightly to look at my husband. His eyes dropped to the ground. His lips parted like he might speak, but no words came out. "Tyler," I whispered, barely able to get the word out. He didn't answer. I felt every muscle in my body tighten. I wanted to disappear. My fingers dug into the fabric of my dress. I tried to breathe, but my chest felt like it was being crushed from the inside. Delilah sat down again, crossing her legs, completely composed. Some of the guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few got up to refill drinks they didn't need. One of Tyler's cousins whispered something to her friend and walked toward the bathroom. No one said a word to me. I had never felt so humiliated in my life. Not even in high school, not even at my mom's funeral, not even when I found out I was pregnant and wasn't sure what we were going to do. This moment, surrounded by people, made me feel completely alone. And Tyler, he was right there, my husband, the father of my child, and he did nothing. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stood up, not sure if I was about to leave or scream. But before I could do either, I heard Rick push back his chair behind me. That sound changed everything. Rick stood up slowly. His chair scraped gently against the stone patio, and the sound made people turn toward him. He wasn't a loud man. He never needed to be. Rick was the kind of person who carried authority not through volume, but through presence. In that moment, his presence filled the entire space. I looked at him, unsure what he was about to do. Part of me expected him to walk over and hug me, whisper something comforting, but he didn't come to me right away. He stood there, tall and steady, holding something small in his hand, a little black velvet box, square, with the kind of worn edges that only come from time. He glanced around the crowd and then spoke, not loudly, but clearly enough for everyone to hear. "I didn't bring a gift for everyone today," he said. "Just one." The tension was immediate. Even Delilah froze. Rick rarely spoke in gatherings like this, and when he did, people listened. He wasn't confrontational by nature, but there was something in his voice that made silence fall over the entire yard. He stepped forward and looked at me. His eyes were soft, but there was something fierce behind them too, like he was standing in front of a fire but refusing to move. "This," he said, holding up the box, "belonged to your mother." Breath caught. My eyes snapped to the box in his hand. I hadn't seen it before. I didn't even know it existed. For a second, I forgot about the people staring, the shame sitting heavy on my shoulders, and the ache of Tyler's silence. Rick took another step closer. "She gave this to me before she passed, asked me to keep it safe for when the time felt right. She said she wanted you to have it when you became a mother." The box trembled slightly in his fingers. He opened it. Inside was a delicate gold locket, small, heart-shaped, with a single opal set in the center. I recognized it immediately. My mom used to wear it every day when I was little. I remembered tracing it with my fingers when she held me. I remembered seeing it tucked just under her blouse during school events and bedtime stories. Rick took it out of the box carefully and handed it to me. "She wore this the day you were born," he said. "She would have wanted your daughter to have it one day." I didn't know what to say. My hands shook as I took it. The weight of it in my palm was small, but the meaning was enormous. I looked up at him and saw the same tears forming in his eyes that were now burning in mine. Something shifted in the space around us. The shame that Delilah had tried to brand me with just minutes earlier began to lift. Her words, her judgment, her icy performance, they started to fade, because in that moment someone showed up for me. Someone reminded me who I was. Not a mistake, not an inconvenience. A daughter, a soon-to-be mother, a woman worth honoring. I clutched the locket to my chest. My voice shook, but I spoke. "She really saved this?" Rick nodded. "Every day, it was never hers anymore. It was always meant for you." The people around us were still quiet, but it wasn't the same silence anymore. I heard sniffling behind me. My friend Serena was crying openly. One of my aunts was wiping her eyes with a napkin. Even a few of Delilah's family members looked uncomfortable, no longer sure where to stand in this emotional divide. Delilah herself remained seated, her arms crossed, her face tight. I could feel her watching, probably furious that her moment of control had been swept away by something as simple and powerful as love. Rick placed a hand on my shoulder, steady and warm. "You're doing this without your mom, but you're not doing it alone." Behind me, Tyler shifted. He hadn't moved until now. I felt his hand return to my back, hesitant at first, then more certain. Maybe something inside him had finally clicked, or maybe he just saw what real support looked like and realized how far he had fallen short. But in that moment, I didn't need him to fix it, because Rick had already reminded me that I wasn't broken. And the locket resting against my chest told me I was exactly where I needed to be. The locket felt cool against my skin, its chain soft and delicate as Rick helped clasp it behind my neck. As it settled just above my heart, I reached up and touched it, grounding myself in the one thing that suddenly made me feel strong. The people around us were still quiet, but it wasn't that tense, brittle silence from earlier. It was something softer now, reverent, heavy with emotion. I looked out at the guests, unsure what I was supposed to do next. Say thank you? Sit down? Pretend nothing had happened? Then I saw Serena, my best friend, walk forward with slow, steady steps. Her eyes were red. She wrapped her arms around me, tight, and whispered into my ear, "Your mom would be so proud of you." That was all it took. The dam broke. My chest heaved with the first sob, and I couldn't hold it back. I didn't want to. I cried like I hadn't cried in years, not just because of Delilah or the humiliation or the hurt, but because I had been holding so much in for so long, trying to be composed, trying to be the bigger person, trying to ignore the ache of not having my mom beside me for the most vulnerable chapter of my life. And now, through Rick, it was like she had reached across time to remind me I wasn't alone. Then, something I never expected happened. Tyler stepped forward. His hands were trembling. His eyes, which had been downcast since Delilah's comment, now lifted. He looked at me first, then at his mother. He cleared his throat and spoke louder than I had ever heard him speak in public. "Mom," he said, "that was cruel." Delilah blinked. She opened her mouth like she was about to interrupt, but he held up his hand. "Number, I need to say this," he said. "You humiliated my wife. You embarrassed her in front of our family and friends, and you did it with no shame, like it was your right." Her face hardened. I was being honest. Tyler didn't back down. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty. Amira didn't ruin anything. She's carrying your grandchild. She deserves love and respect, and if you can't give her that, you don't get to be part of this. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Delilah went rigid, her lips pressed into a tight line, but Tyler kept going. "I've let you get away with too much for too long. I've kept quiet to avoid conflict, but not anymore. This is my family now. Amira and our baby come first." He turned to me. His voice softened. "I should have stood up sooner. I'm sorry." I stared at him, unsure how to respond. For the first time, I saw something new in his eyes. Not just guilt, but resolve. Something had cracked open in him, too. Maybe it took public humiliation to wake him up. Maybe it took seeing someone else love me the way he should have. Either way, the words he spoke in front of everyone mattered. Then Rick stepped beside him, placing a hand on Tyler's shoulder. "It takes courage to speak like that," he said. "Make sure you keep doing it." Delilah stood up. Her chair tipped slightly before she caught it. She didn't speak. She walked past us without saying a word and left through the side gate. A few of her relatives followed her, unsure of what to do, casting nervous glances behind them. No one stopped her. As the gate clicked shut, I felt something lift off my chest. For the first time that day, I inhaled fully. The shame, the embarrassment, the years of quiet insults and icy glances, they didn't own me anymore. The guests slowly returned to their seats. Serena handed me a glass of water. My aunt offered to pack up the extra food. People started talking again. Quietly, carefully, but with warmth. They avoided the awkwardness not because it didn't happen, but because something better had taken its place. After a while, I looked down at the locket again. I opened it. Inside was the old photo of my mom holding me in the hospital just minutes after I was born. Her hair was pulled back, her face flushed, but her eyes were alive with joy. She looked tired and radiant and completely full of love. Now, standing in that backyard with the baby I was about to bring into the world, I finally understood that look. 2 weeks later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, 7 pounds, 9 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and the same deep brown eyes my mother had. When the nurse placed her on my chest, I didn't cry right away. I just stared at her, memorizing every detail, feeling something rise in my chest that I had never felt before. It wasn't just love, it was something older and deeper. A sense of home I thought I had lost years ago. We named her Leona Grace after my mom. In the hospital room, Rick was the first one to hold her after me and Tyler. He sat down in the chair by the window, his arms cradling her like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. He looked at her, then at me, and said, "She's got her grandmother's strength already. You can see it in her jaw." I smiled. I didn't have words yet. Just the overwhelming feeling that everything had come full circle. My mom wasn't there in body, but I felt her everywhere, in the locket still hanging around my neck, in Rick's steady voice, in the peaceful silence of that room as our daughter slept for the first time. Tyler never apologized with flowers or big gestures after the baby shower. Instead, he changed his behavior. He began attending every prenatal class. He held me during contractions without flinching. He took night shifts with the baby when I was too tired to lift my head. He didn't try to fix what happened. He just showed up day after day without asking for credit. That mattered more than any speech. As for Delilah, she didn't come to the hospital. She didn't send a card or make a phone call. A week after we got home, she sent a message through one of Tyler's aunts saying she needed time and hoped the baby was doing well. I didn't reply. I wasn't angry. I just didn't have space in my life anymore for someone who couldn't see the beauty of the life I had created. The truth is, that baby shower wasn't the disaster I thought it was at the time. It was a breaking point that revealed everything I needed to know. It showed me who I could count on. It reminded me that love is not about blood or obligation. It's about choice. And Rick chose me. Again and again. My friends chose me. And in the end, Tyler chose to grow. Sometimes it takes a public wound to force private healing. That moment of humiliation, as painful as it was, gave birth to something far more important than anger or revenge. It gave birth to clarity. It taught me that standing alone doesn't mean you're unsupported. It means you're strong enough to know who you are even when others try to make you feel small. I will tell Leona that story one day, not to make her feel sorry for me, but to show her what it means to speak up for yourself and what it looks like when someone truly has your back. I'll show her the locket and tell her about the woman who wore it first. I'll tell her about Rick and how he stood up when no one else would. I'll tell her about Tyler and how love sometimes needs to be challenged to become real. And when she's older and finds herself in a moment where she's unsure, where someone tries to silence her or make her question her worth, I hope she remembers the women who came before her. I hope she remembers the story of how she came into this world, not surrounded by perfection, but wrapped in truth, resilience, and real love. Because in the end, that's what family is. Not just the people who share your name, but the ones who show up when it matters most. And that day in the backyard when I was surrounded by silence, shame, and judgment, one man stood up. And by doing that, he reminded everyone, and most importantly me, that I was never a mistake. I was a beginning. Thank you for watching my story. If it touched you in any way or reminded you of your own journey, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Your voice matters here. If you believe in the power of standing up for others, in the strength of chosen family, or in the beauty of becoming something stronger through pain, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more real stories that speak to the heart. This isn't just a channel, it's a space for truth, for healing, and for reminding each other that we're never as alone as we think. I appreciate you being here. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of those who take care of you.